for joining on. Appreciate you guys. Week 3, the past 2. If you guys have not been able to join on, please go on our YouTube. Garrett's been a great asset. Garrett's awesome, man. Shout out to him again. He's doing a great job of putting things out. Go out to our YouTube. Check out the first 2 weeks. And then we're going to try to get this going every week, man. So do appreciate you guys. Do appreciate the support. My counterpart, Mike, thank you, Mike, for your time and your work in this. Appreciate you. And Anthony, man. Anthony's going to help me moderate this session today. Thank you so much, Anthony, for sharing this platform with me. And so today we have 2 great speakers, man. Matt and Jeff. I'm going to kind of start with Jeff, and then Anthony will help me out and go with Matt. But I want to thank you guys both for taking time and doing this, and everybody else out there. So without further ado, man, I want to introduce you guys to Jeff Harada. He's just finishing up his 3rd year at Cal State Fullerton. He started his career, was on the men's side. He's been to the NCAA tournament, D1 and NIT. He's had 2 NCAA Division I tournament appearances, Division II West Region tournament, NIT, WNIT. He's been 3-time conference champion, 2-time tournament champion, and also been a coach of the year, man. It's a pretty nice resume. So Jeff, man, thank you so much. He's currently going into year 4 at Cal State Fullerton, man, women's head coach.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Thanks you so much, man.
Allowing me to be here and to talk a little bit. I don't know if I have as much, to share like Matt does about his matchup zone and his defense. That's big time. I want to hear about that. But, I'm here more just to kind of talk about my journey, how I got to where I got, just having to rebuild culture within teams and how that's kind of important. So, but I just appreciate you guys, being willing to listen to me. If I can ever help, give advice, information to any of you guys to help, get to that next step or achieve your goals, definitely more than willing to do so. I'll get you guys all my contact info. But I started out, at the bottom. Like Steve said, on the men's side, I went to school at University of Colorado back a long time ago, I graduated high school in the late 80s, so I was there in the early 90s. And just started out as I worked 2 years as a volunteer. I got paid $0, had to work graveyard shifts at a hotel, go straight into the office in the morning when I got off of work, go to practice, go home, sleep, and do it all over again for 2 straight years. And believe me, there were days where, I questioned if this was worth my time or not. And for me, it was just, at that time, it was just more of, I had to do what I had to do if I wanted to achieve what I wanted to achieve. I knew this is what I wanted to do. So, but yeah, I've been an assistant at 3 different schools, a head coach at 3 different schools. The 3 schools I've been head coaches at, all 3 were rebuilds. So that's kind of interesting in itself. 2 of them were Division II schools, and then 1, my current school, Cal State Fullerton. So, but definitely everything along the way has kind of prepared me for where I am today. So,
hey Jeff, yeah. It's looking at your resume. It's been a pretty interesting journey. I mean, you've been all over at different levels too, and you said it, man. You got to bust your butt and kind of do what you got to do to get it. But can you share with us kind of the process of going from you're at West Coast to East Coast to West Coast? I mean, some people won't even make that move going coast to coast.
Yeah, so I'm kind of fortunate, I'm not married, so I can easily pick up and just kind of move. That's kind of the luxury I had. But, like Steve said, I started out, I'm from Hawaii originally. I was at Hawaii Pacific University, a D2 school, and that was my first head coaching position. Inherited a team that was 2-25 the year before I took over. Just tried to rebuild the program, and we won 8 games my first year, won 14 my next year. I actually got rid of a lot of players, went into year 2, recruited a whole new team, had 4 freshman starters. It was crazy. I've never lost so many games like that. That was the first time, but it was frustrating. But again, just building that program. Won 14 games my second year, and then the third year we won the conference. So, kind of a big jump, which was great. Had another good year the next year, and then, like Steve said, I went to the East Coast after that. I went to the Naval Academy as an assistant. For me, it was an opportunity to get to a higher level. A big part of it was, at the Division II level, for a lot of you guys who work at, lower levels, it's so different. You wear so many hats at that level. You're not just a coach. I was actually the associate AD for compliance at Hawaii Pacific, and I got a stipend to coach the women's basketball team. So it was kind of a weird thing. But I knew in my heart, I didn't want to do compliance. I don't know if anybody of you guys have experience with compliance. It's a full-time crazy job in itself. So for me, the opportunity to get to a higher level, to just coach basketball is what I wanted to do. It was miles away, right? One coast to the next, but it was an opportunity that I just couldn't pass up. So I ended up going out there, spent 3 years there, and then, had some success out there. But it was a great experience, just expanding your contacts, meeting new people, recruiting to a service academy. It's such a different deal. It's a certain pool of kids that you have to choose from. You're not really going to get those blue chip athletes. You got to look at the academic piece, the service piece after they graduate, and it's just a different kid. So just learning that kind of stuff, how to, recruit a different style of kid. I think it just helped me prepare. And then obviously the opportunity to go back west. I'll tell you this, it was hard going from a head coach to an assistant. I don't know if you guys have ever done that. I thought that was the big learning experience for me. I have no complaints about it, but it was just different for me. But I would highly recommend, I wish, knowing what I know now, I wish all assistant coaches could be head coaches first. I really wish that, because it gave me a different perspective. And, I truly believe in my heart, if I had to be an assistant coach tomorrow, I would be the best assistant coach in the country, because I know exactly what the head coach needs. I know exactly how to communicate. It's just, like I said, I just wish assistants could be head coaches first, so they understand what their role truly is. But yeah, going back to the West Coast, I had a head coaching opportunity at the D2 level again, Central Washington University. Another rebuild, which, I don't know if that was something. So obviously that challenge to rebuild is kind of my motivating factor, something where to accomplish something that no one else could do or was doing. I think that's what kind of pushed me to take that job. And on the flip side, it's like, well, hopefully I can't do any worse, than how they were. So, but it just helps you. I think if I could rebuild that program, maybe it would elevate me and give me a chance to get an opportunity somewhere else, so to take on that challenge. And I like the challenge, that's something to build something on your own, to implement, your program, to do what you want to do, to start your own culture, and to take something from nothing and turn it into something and put your name on it. I think that's what drives me.
What would you say your greatest challenge is, Jeff, on that?
Changing the culture.
I mean, greatest challenge as in like any particular moment, like whether it be when you're in Washington or Hawaii Pacific or even Navy or so, but what would be your greatest challenge? Is there a specific time?
I think just the biggest challenges for me have been trying to stay true to my beliefs, trying to stay true to, what I think is right, doing things the way I believe need to be done. I think that's the thing. There's so many things that you consider, right? There's always, with every program, with every school, every administration, they all have different goals, different agendas, different things going on. How you run your program. I think you have to be consistent. You got to be true to what you believe in. Growing up, obviously being Asian, most of you guys on here are Asian. I think we grow up in a different culture. We're taught different things, based on our family, culture, environment. We work hard, we keep our heads down, we work hard, we don't cause waves, we don't ask questions. We just put the work in. And, I think, the challenge for me was trying to stay true to that, but also understanding you have to say things and stand up for yourself and stick up for yourself as well. You
So,
know,
so let me ask you this: like, when you had mentioned earlier about the first year there, you're kind of getting kids off the team and all that. How much emphasis did you put on that in regards to like relationship with your AD to get his or her okay with that, or do you even do it your own? And how is the process of getting rid of people? Because getting in a new program, I don't know if that's something that kind of you don't want to piss anybody off or anything.
yeah, I mean, that's something you negotiate in the hiring process. You know, I mean, so think about it. I mean, in reality, there's a couple reasons why programs are bad or they struggle. I mean, bad players, bad coaching. You know, I mean, that's what it comes down to, bad recruiting. You know, so when they replace a coach, obviously, you know, that takes care of itself. But then, you know, you look at what hand you've been dealt, and you got to try to, you know, you guys have all heard the saying, right? Trying to turn, you know, make chicken salad out of chicken shit, you know, and it's not that easy sometimes, you know, and I mean, so you negotiate within the hiring process. Hey, what am I allowed to do? You know, what are my boundaries here? I'm allowed to, you know, get rid of kids and bring in new kids, especially the D2 level, because, you know, the D2 coaches out there, I see Danelle's on here and she understands, you know, with the scholarship money, you got to be creative. You know, you don't have 15 full rides like you do at Division 1. You know, normally you have a dollar amount and you have to carve out your roster with in-state, out-of-state kids. And then you have a dollar amount of tuition that you can offer. You have X amount of cash you can probably offer for housing and other things. And you have to figure out who you're going to invest in, how many kids are going to get, you know, the most money, and build your team around that. So I think you look at your current roster, and when you have kids that you're investing a ton of money in from the previous staff and it's just doesn't add up because their production's not there. You know, I mean, you have kids who are on full rides and they're playing 8 minutes a game. You know, you can't keep those kids. You know,
So let me ask you this: the Division 2 to Division 1 levels that you've been at, are there what type of experiences at the D2 level really help you to prepare yourself for Division 1? And is it budget or whatnot? I mean, sounds like it helps out a little bit too, but can you kind of go into that?
yeah, I think just wearing so many hats at the D2 level. You know, I mean, you don't have the full-time staff that you normally would at the D1 level. So, you know, you normally have one full-time assistant. If you're lucky, you have two, but then you have maybe a part-timer and you probably have a couple GAs. You know, so that's what you're with. So as a head coach, you're doing a lot more than you would normally do at a D1 school. You know, I'm responsible for ordering all the equipment, doing all the travel, scheduling, you know, just the day-to-day stuff, you know, doing the budget. You know, I think that's the thing when D1 coach, as a D1 coach, you have 3-4 people on staff that you can delegate all that stuff to, you know. So for me, I already knew what needed to be, you know, what the job encompassed as far as responsibilities, all the paperwork, all the little things, all the behind the scenes things other than X's and O's that, you know, other people don't know about, you know. I mean, people think, oh, you're a basketball coach. What do? You just show up for practice? Is that full time? Is that a full time job? You know, I mean, that's a lot of the ignorance that people don't understand, you know, what we do. You know, they don't realize, yeah, when we're not on the floor, we don't just show up for practice and that's it. You know, I mean, there's a planning, there's budgeting, there's all that kind of stuff. So being able to, you know, have all those responsibilities, obviously, I think it prepares you, you know, once you get to the D1 level where it just becomes a little bit easier in that aspect, you know, but you already know what you have to look out for and what you have to check off, you know, every day, every week, every month, every year, you know, so nothing's a surprise, I guess.
All right. So as a head coach, I mean, you get the job, you're a Division 1 head coach now. What are you doing your first 30 days?
You're getting to know your players, you know, obviously, getting to know, you know, just figuring out a staff. I think that's one of the first things. You know, you got to put together a staff, a good staff that's going to help you, you know, achieve what you want to achieve. Getting familiar with your surroundings. You know, I want to shout out, obviously, Anthony Santos is on the call. When I first got hired, he was invaluable to me. You know, with him being there, he talked about when a couple of weeks ago when he talked about his story. You know, how about him being at Fullerton for so long and knowing everything. I mean, this guy knows everyone and everything. And I could come to him and ask him any question I had, and he would point me in the right direction. So having somebody like him around who I could lean on for advice, for information, was just super helpful. But I mean, obviously that's that kind of thing. You got to know, what's going on. Who do I talk to? Again, getting to know the players. Then you got to recruit. I mean, when I took the job at Fullerton, I had 5 players on the roster. That's it. I inherited 5 kids. So I needed to find a team. And this was in June that I got hired, so I'm trying to figure out how can I get a roster of, quality players at this time of year to help us compete, and try to turn this program around. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, Mike's got a question. Mike, you want to unmute yourself and kind of ask?
Yeah, well, as you're talking about this, Coach Harada, like, what is a perfect staff for you, for Coach Harada? Like, what does that look like?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you as the head coach, you want assistant coaches who are, number one, hard workers. But I think important to me is just, their loyalty, finding somebody who's going to be loyal. Hiring coaches who don't want your job, I think that's important as well, to make sure that they understand what their role is. And then coaches who have recruiting connections, because at the end of the day, recruiting is that's the bloodline of your program. I mean, you got to have coaches who have connections, who have access to players, who understand and know, where they can find, the kind of players that you want in your program. But, for me, it comes down to people I can trust, who are going to understand that sometimes decisions are going to be made that they may not agree with, but, at the end of the day, they need to support it, and not, oppose it in a way where it's detrimental to the program. And I think that's really important. I know it's been talked about in the last couple of weeks, as an assistant, what is your role as an assistant coach? Yeah, it's to do things that, that and that you do, but it's under the discretion of the head coach as well. And as an assistant, I think you have to have that kind of loyalty, and understand, because you don't know what it's like to sit in that chair. It's easy to make suggestions. It's harder to make decisions, and we live and die as head coaches with the decisions we make, and we're not going to please everyone. And we know that, but at the end of the day, that's what our position, that's the responsibility we have, so looking at staff, obviously I don't look so much for the X's and O's. I really don't. I mean, I know enough about X's and O's. I need people who are going to complement me, and I want people similar to, as far as their beliefs are similar to me, similar philosophies, but I kind of want people who are a little bit different from me as well. I don't want a staff full of people who are exactly like me.
That's awesome. A good question, Coach. I had a buddy tell me one time, Steve, if I become a head coach, I'm going to hire you because you'll do the crap I don't want to do. And that's absolutely true. Sometimes you got to hire staff that would do things and work hard. And it makes your job easier as a head coach if you have a great staff that's working hard and especially loyal. That's huge.
Sure.
But now a lot of these young coaches, people here has been in the business, they're navigating through their career, Jeff, and they're looking for possibly someone that they can look up to or been there, done that, mentor. I think a mentor is very important. I think mentees are also important as well. But for yourself, how would you advise someone looking or seeking for a mentor, and how to approach that or tackle that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I specifically have one mentor that I think that has helped, shape my career or anything like that. I think I take bits and pieces from a lot of people I've worked for and worked with, and I develop my own philosophy, because I mean, as an assistant, I mean, let's all be honest, you're not going to agree with everything your head coach does. You just don't, but there's things you like, and as early on in my career, there were things, when I was an assistant, it was like, well, I like how we do that. I like this idea. I like this thing, but I would never do this. I don't believe in this, there's people I bounce ideas off. There's people I constantly ask questions to. There's people on this call right now that I talk to during the season, and ask advice to. So even as a head coach, I'm asking people. I don't know all the answers. I learn every day like everyone else. But as far as having a mentor, I think, when you have somebody that you can confide in, that you can trust, someone who's going to tell you the truth, I think that's important. I think you need a mentor who is going to keep it real with you, and not sugarcoat things. But I think if you can find somebody like that, it's definitely going to be beneficial, if you want to further your career, for sure.
So I get asked this question a lot. I'm going to ask you, since you and I are kind of in the same boat. I was on the men's side, so are you. What's the? I wouldn't say the difference, but can you kind of talk about men's, women's basketball and how it relates to you and your career?
Yeah. So I used to get that question all the time, right? What's the difference between men and coaching women? And jokingly I would say this, but I really believe this, in my heart. So my answer to that has always been, well, men feel good when they play well. Women play well when they feel good. And I think that's so true, because to me, that's the biggest difference. Women, I think, are more disciplined. I think it's more of a team game. Let's be real. We play below the rim. The men play above the rim. We can't rely so much on our athleticism per se to compensate for mistakes that we make like the men can. We're just not as athletic. And I don't mean that you know, as a bad thing, but I mean, I just mean that, it's more of a team game. I think women are more coachable. Guys, let's put it this way. When I was coaching the men, every guy I coached thought they were going to play in the NBA. Every guy thought, I'm going to the league, and coach, you're holding me back from getting to the league. I need to be playing, and I think that's just the biggest difference. I think women, some of them want to play, obviously, and there's opportunities now, which is great for them to play after college. But a lot of them understand, I have 4 years to play. I'm going to take advantage of this education, and I think that's one of the biggest differences too. But for me, I think the women are more coachable. The guys think they know everything, I think the women, they listen a little bit better. Like I said, it's more of a team game. They realize they need each other to be successful. And I'm not saying that about all guys, but just in my experience with the guys teams, a lot of them are just fixated on themselves, and it's a lot of one-on-one basketball with the guys. So
Yeah, definitely. Well, at that young age, you think you know it all, and as you get older, I tend to forget. I forget to tend to know less. So that's just how it is for me. And you know what? I still think I'm going to the NBA, y'all. So got my fingers crossed. Hey, what advice would you give those out there looking to get into college coaching or to be a college head coach? Not just an assistant, but to be a collegiate head coach.
you got to know your stuff. You got to know your stuff. I think you got to be willing to grind and be a hard worker, and you got to understand that it's not easy getting into this career, especially at this level, in the college level. It's hard to get in, and it's even harder to stay in, I think, once you get in. So I think you got to, again, bring a work ethic. You got to make connections. I think it was talked about in the last couple of weeks. It's who knows you. I mean, it's who you know for sure, but a lot of it is who knows you. Do people know who you are? These kinds of, now it's so hard to get out and about, but when we're out recruiting, talk to people, introduce yourself to people, network, and just make connections with people who are colleagues of yours, who are head coaches, people you can help or who can help you. I think that's big. But finding the right fit, not chasing every job, but finding a fit where, it's going to be a good fit for you, and an opportunity for you to learn, to teach, and also to extend your career. I think that's important. I think a lot of us get so caught up. I only want to coach D1. I only want to do this. I'm only going to do this. But I think you got to be open to different things, and you got to be willing to start at the bottom. I think that's the hard thing. You got to prove yourself, and until you prove yourself, it's just going to be hard, I think, to move up.
definitely. Kevin's got a question. Kevin, would you like to unmute yourself and ask Jeff?
Hey, Jeff. First of all, I appreciate you spending your time today with us. I can relate to some of the things that you're talking about in terms of opportunity and the grind. I mean, this thing is real. You know, I mean, we don't really have a lot of opportunities given the fact that we're minorities in this business. But at the same time, I think if you work hard at it and you network and you connect with people, you might have a chance. So the question I have for you is, how often do you connect/meet with your team on Zoom during this crazy time?
So we were doing once a week, when school was still in session. Funny you guys asked that because we just actually had a team meeting today earlier this morning, but we try to stay connected at least once a week, just to check in. A lot of our kids are here right now. A lot of them went home, but they got tired of being home, and so they wanted to come back. So they're actually in town. But we try to meet once a week just to update them on what's going on around campus, check in on their mental health, what they've been doing, and just give them, time to share with each other as well. But they're spending time with each other, so it's a good thing. But for me, I haven't seen any of my players in 3 months other than on Zoom. So it's definitely a different feel right now. We try to stay connected, as much as possible, for sure. But yeah, and then getting back to the grind, Kevin, I think it's super important. I mean, for me, I don't think about it as much, but it's always in the back of my mind. Every head coaching job I've had, there was a lot of not pressure per se, but it's always something that I think about is, if I fail, will I ever get another chance? So that motivates me and that drives me not to want to fail. Just because, like you said, as one of the only Asian head coaches in the country, I feel like I have an opportunity. If I can do well, maybe it'll open up a door for you. Maybe it'll open up a door for someone else, and I don't want to compare because it's not as dramatic or extreme to like a Jackie Robinson kind of thing. But if I can do well, maybe other Asian coaches will get opportunities. If I don't do well, will that hurt other Asian coaches and their opportunities? So that always is in the back of my mind. And I always feel like I'm doing this for more than just me. I'm doing this for all of us. And, like I said, if there's any way I can help any one of you guys, give advice, anything I can do, obviously I'm here for that. So, because I know what it's like. When I was coming up early in the 90s, there wasn't a lot of us out there, coaching at all. And so I had really nobody, that looked like me that I could talk to and ask questions to, and so now that I'm in a position, we're all in positions here to help. I think, that's something that I owe it, but I want to do it. So.
Yeah, one thing for sure, I can relate to you, Coach. I'm single too. I'm not married.
Makes it a lot easier to move, man.
It's solo out here.
Makes it a lot easier to go different places, for sure.
Yeah. Married to the game, man. That's awesome. Congrats, man. Hey, Jeff, man, this has been great. Mike's got a question for you. Mike, would you like to unmute yourself?
Sure. What's cool, actually, it's crazy. Coach Pham, weren't you the women's head coach at Merced, and then they hired you as the men's head coach?
Yeah, I was actually the women's coach there for UC Merced gave me my first opportunity as a head coach, and I built a team from the ground up, just like Coach did with some of his schools, and then made a lateral movement to the men's side because our team was kind of struggling for a little bit, and then they saw the success that we had with the women's team, and we were literally gonna be top 25 next year in the NAIA, and pretty much dropped all that to go over to the men's side and rebuild the men's team from the ground up. So it's definitely a unique experience and a blessing opportunity, though, to be able to do both at one institution.
Is anybody aware of another men's Asian head coach? I think you might be.
I think I'm the only one.
I think so.
Like cool Asian, yeah?
Yeah. Cool Asian, crazy.
Yeah, it is nuts. And sometimes we forget about it sometimes, though. But like Coach said, like we got to use this platform. I mean, if I don't do well or if I make a mistake in this business, it kind of affects the Asian line, Sure. So we're very conscientious about that kind of stuff.
I never thought about that until Coach Harada just said it right now. Yeah. My question for you, Coach, was just a little basketball question. So you've been a head coach at 3 different spots. Have you run the same offense and same system, or have you adjusted?
Pretty much the same stuff. Obviously, it's tweaked a little bit based on personnel. I think you gotta every year you gotta look at who you have. You try to recruit, obviously, to your system, but when you take over a program, you look at the hand you've been dealt, and you tweak certain things. But for the majority, I run a lot of transition, early offense. And then we run our half court, we run a lot of like a continuous ball screen motion. So, we run a lot of stuff out of our ball screen stuff. And I've pretty much taken that, with me everywhere I've went, and recruited players who can play in that kind of system. So.
And then defensively, same system, or have you changed?
Yeah, I mean, early in my career, I was all about being in the passing lanes, up the line, down the line, one pass away. And then, now I'm more kind of not switched, but I still like to pressure the ball, but I kind of play more gap now, a little bit more. And that was based on my first year here at Fullerton. We just didn't have the athletes to play the way I wanted to play. So we played a lot more gap, just kind of, and my thought process kind of, changed throughout the years as far as now we want to limit paint shots. We want to keep the ball outside the paint. We want to force teams to take contested jump shots on the perimeter. We want nothing inside, nothing easy. So I think gap defense helps us out a little bit more with that. So.
Is that something that you kind of picked up on as you progress in your career from this coach to that coach you worked with before? Or is that something you felt comfortable or just know the system better? And
I mean, it was more so we would have staff meetings with my staff and figure out, how can we be better defensively? Were we capable of defending, a certain way? And what we decided was we probably aren't, the right team right now to play this way. So we had to switch the style that we played. So we went more towards with a gap defense. We were getting beat off the ball a little bit too much. We're getting beat backdoor a little bit. We just weren't as athletic and as quick to play the way I wanted to play. So, and I was okay with switching it because that's what our personnel, was going to be better at. And so we taught that type of defense, and then we were actually pretty successful with it. So we kind of kept that, year to year. And so it's kind of been what we've done for the last 3 years now.
Awesome. Hey, and I'll tell you this, man, if anybody has any more questions, feel free to drop it in the chat box or so. Well, I'll tell you this, Jeff, and Kevin mentioned too, but, the pressure that you put on yourself is great. We're not trying to put the pressure on you, but that's awesome. If so, whatever it takes, man, I believe in that as well. You got to put something on you to kind of motivate you in a sense where say, I got to do this not just for myself, but for others. That's awesome. And thank you so much for being that pioneer for those coming behind you. If no one has any other questions, we'll have a little bit of time at the end, probably to ask more questions too, but if no one has any other questions, then thank you so much, Jeff, for your time, this opportunity, and what you're doing for the game and those young ladies over there at Fullerton. And I'm going to pass the ball over to Anthony for my assist.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Coach Harada. Just to kind of jump right into it, thanks everyone again for taking the time to be here on Zoom. You guys could be anywhere right now. And with our next speaker, he's someone I consider a good friend, not far down the road from us at Fullerton. And I think he has a ton. Actually, I know he has a ton of different things to offer, more than just the matchup zone. He's going to talk about just from who he is, how he goes about his business. He's been part of a winning culture at Cal Poly Pomona, and so I'll let him kind of do his deal. I'll have some questions here to ask him, but I think it's important that for everyone on this call, drop your questions in, because this is about everyone being able to have access to this type of information. So I'll pass over the torch to Coach Okada.
And appreciate the intro. Thank you guys for the opportunity to share. Looking forward to it. I think especially with everything going on in our country and our world right now, I really appreciated the chance to kind of mentally detach for a second think and talk some basketball. So I appreciate it. So with that being said, man, let's jump right into it. If I can share my screen, Garrett, if you could hook me up with that. Garrett, you got me? There it goes. All right, so a couple of things I want to talk about before we talk about, any type of scheme. I think it's first and foremost, it's important to instill a defensive mentality in your program. You have to have this. It doesn't matter what you run. If you don't have these, certain core pillars or values, it's going to be tough to be successful. No matter what you're trying to do. And the first thing, it's pretty obvious. But recruiting, we can take our entire time speaking just on this. But the reality of it is, if you don't have guys that care about defense, it's hard to be a good defensive team. Coach K, my boss, has a really good term. He always says he wants, foxhole guys. Guys when it's tough and physical and you're in the battle, you want those guys on your side. You know what I mean? And I think it's really important that, majority of your program, majority of your guys, have this mentality. I think you understand that not everybody on your roster is going to be Draymond. Nor would you want that because, when you get to the offensive side, you don't want to play with a lid on the basket. But the majority of your guys have to have this mentality, and it's got to be important to them, if you want to be successful. And I think it's easy to tell. A lot of people ask me, how do you know it's important? So I think, when they throw the ball up and the game starts, within 2 minutes, you can usually tell whether defense is important to a player or not. The next point, everyone's heard this. I think everyone's heard this quote or some form of it, right? Great offense beats great defense. You can turn on any NBA game, not right now, but you can turn on an NBA game and, you got Mark Jackson, outstanding defense, that's just better offense. Mama, there goes that man. And I think that's true at the highest level, right? If you're trying to close out on a KD jump shot, you're trying to keep LeBron out of the lane. Sometimes there's not a whole lot you can do. But I think at the college level and lower, I think defensively, you're a lot more in control of, a given outcome. And you can, there's things you can coach and teach that can affect the outcome of any given offensive play. This is something that I learned a lot and was more cognizant of, as I got deeper into my coaching career. I remember when I was younger, any given play in a practice where the offense scores the ball, I was quick to pat the offensive guy on the back, oh, great move, way to go by him. When in actuality, you have a choice at any of those given moments, to let the defense know that they're not doing enough, that there's always something you can do. When the offensive player at this level is not quite as talented, and when the help side defense can be in the paint, you're just more in control of the possession defensively, and just letting your guys know that there's always something they can do. You start empowering them defensively. They start believing that there's always something they can do to get a stop. And then this next point, that kind of goes hand in hand. But this is something we preach, that you're always in control defensively of your performance. You can't just say one night, oh man, they were making tough shots. Like, nah, how are they getting those shots off? And that's a standard that you as a coach have to set, first and foremost. And the reality of it is, we go through it a lot. There's going to be nights where, you can't make a shot. And you still, if you want to be a championship team, you have to find ways to win those games when you don't have your best stuff. And I think, defense is obviously a big part of that. And then finally, competitive practices. I think Coach Peck last week spoke a lot about this. We do closeouts, some form of closeouts or shell almost every day, especially early. We keep score, winners, losers. You know what I mean? And we just make sure that we're competing in most things that we do. And then finally, this is a little subjective, but early in the season, especially, we don't call that many fouls in practice, if any. Obviously, we're not letting guys club other dudes, but we want them to. We want to encourage aggressiveness. We want to encourage physicality. And it helps the offense, right? They've got to be strong with the ball. They got to be low on their jump stops and play off 2 feet. We're not going to bail them out, with something that may or may not be a foul. And then, there's some negatives to it. We do foul a lot early in the season, typically. But just in general, we think it's easier to pull the reins back and get guys to be less aggressive than to try to fire them up later down the road. So speaking more specifically to zone defense, couple benefits of it. First one, my favorite benefit is shorter scouts. The reality of it is most teams, their zone packages are not as extensive as man. You're not worried about 20 different specials, 5 different offenses. You can lock in on the 1 or 2 things that they typically do. And you can get through that a little bit faster. And then what that allows you to do is lock in more on other aspects of the scout, like personnel, trying to develop a game plan of how we're going to score. I think that saves us a ton of work, throughout the course of the season. Second point, motion deep. Everyone talks about motion offense, right? Reading and reacting, making plays, seeing the defense, taking advantage of feel and IQ. And I think defensively, our zone, any zone, frees guys up to make plays on that end as well. I don't think quite as many people talk about that. But if you're on the weak side and you're not worried about chasing your guy around, you're freed up and you can kind of just use your instincts. And I think that's something that helps us get in passing lanes, get deflections, and, force turnovers and get out on the break. Next thing is lineup flexibility. Is huge for us, in my opinion. And I think it's lineup flexibility and it's recruiting flexibility as well. I think, when we're out looking for guys, obviously we're not Duke or North Carolina. We don't have the pick of the litter. When it comes to recruiting, you just got to recruit good players. And when you have a system where you're not worried about so-and-so matching up, trying to guard this guy, and you're not so worried about individual matchups. You can put, a wider variety or, a greater collection of guys on the floor. So I think that helps us a lot. Especially speaking specifically to us, the past 4 years, we haven't been able to recruit a serviceable post guy. For the longest, I think the middle guy of our zone was 6'1", 230. But he was quick, he was smart. It's tough to get post touches against the zone. And we were able to make it work. Defensive adjustments are also, I think a big benefit for us. Ball screens, you can trap, you can get through, you can switch, you can trap the corners, you can extend, you can get back. It gives you a lot of flexibility, game to game, possession to possession, to make changes, and keep the offense off balance. It's easier for us to press as well. A lot of coaches I talk to are concerned about zone pressing because, what we talk to about, matchups. If you're sprinting back into a man and you're just guarding your closest defender, you might be compromised defensively. There might be a matchup that they can take advantage of. But I think it's a lot easier to transition from the press back into a half-court defense in the zone. And then finally, I think it's tougher to isolate, right? Jeff talked a lot about how it's a lot of one-on-one basketball at our level. And I think against the zone, it's tough to, for other teams just get their best player with space and an advantage because the help defense is always there. So moving on, a couple things I think are keys to effective zone. We talked about recruiting. and kind of the intangible part of it. But just in terms of personnel, again, you look at our roster specifically, we're going to err on the side of length, athleticism, and versatility. You can be as tough as you want to be. You can fly around and be smart, but if you got a bunch of 5'11" guys out there, you're probably not going to get many stops. So we like to err on the side of length and athleticism. You hope that you can develop the skill set and all of that stuff. But if they don't end up developing, at the floor is a lot higher, right? At least you got someone who's long and athletic, and there's a presence on the court. Second point, ball pressure, I think, is important no matter what defense you're playing. But for us, ball pressure is imperative because, again, with the zone, you're not quite as matched up, right? There's going to be some gaps. And, if you allow the offense, especially on the wings, to just stand there with the ball up over their head, a good college basketball player is going to pick you apart, right? You can't let them see the floor. So our general rule, we try to tell them, pressure the ball, make them bring the ball down. Make them bring the ball down. If they feel, if they start feeling the pressure and they have to dribble, now even better. But I think this is really critical. Third thing, high post defense. I talked about how it protects against isolations. But one place teams do try to attack is the high post, as they should. So, we really try to avoid allowing the ball to get in there. We're not Syracuse. Syracuse, you watch them play in their 2-3 and 8. Go ahead, throw the ball to the high post. Go one-on-one against our athletic 6'11" guy and see how that works out for you. I spoke on it earlier. We don't have that guy. So we've got to be more proactive in not allowing the ball to get into the high post. And when it does, make sure that guy knows that it's not one-on-one right there. The guys off the ball, are not too spread. So he's seeing bodies at that point. The next point after high post defense, again, post defense is very important, especially for us. Like I said, we're undersized. So we work on post defense a lot, just in terms of moving your feet, beating guys to spots, getting around, using our quickness, using our athleticism, to not allow the ball inside. And when it does go inside, this is something that we teach that I think a lot of other coaches don't. Is contrary to it. Is we teach the arm bar in the post. I see a lot of schools, majority, honestly, who just kind of teach 2 hands up, put your chest on them, belly up, box out. That's how I first learned post defense myself when I was at Pacific. And ultimately, I think, if you're playing against a serviceable post guy who's decent down there, I mean, if you just put your hands up and put your chest on him, eventually he's going to be able to pivot and spin and get an angle to get a shot off. But if you use your arm bar, you know what I mean? Now you're controlling the offensive player a little bit more, and I think you can be a little bit more aggressive defensively. And they, quite honestly, in my experience, they don't call as many fouls on that stuff as you might think. And then the final point I wanted to make before we get into clips here is your guards have to rebound. I think that's huge. A lot of people don't play zone. It's tough to rebound out of the zone, and it can be. But I think, what we really stress is our top guards who, I spoke to the length and athleticism. Those guys are 6'5", 6'4", and athletic, so they're able to do it. But we really focus on those guys coming and rebounding down. Our guards lead us in rebounding every year, and it's usually because the guy in the middle is doing the dirty work and clearing out the 6'8", 250 dudes so someone else can come in and get the ball. So with that, let's get to some clips here. So I got a few for you, give you an idea, give you a visual. This is late season against Cal State Dominguez Hills. Yes.
Coach, we can't see your screen. You have to switch it. You have to switch it and reselect what screen you want to share.
Got you. I'm new to the game. Hold on here.
No, you're good. And just as you're switching over, with your matchup zone, obviously we don't want you to give away all your secrets because I know you got some, coaches in the league there, but do you guys track where teams get their shots versus your matchup zone, and where you want them to get shots from. Like, I know Syracuse, Washington, they want you to catch it at the nail and play one-on-one. Like, do you want teams to shoot from certain spots on the floor?
We just want them to miss from spots on the floor. My head coach is a little old school. He's not super. He's not really into analytics as much as the new wave is. We watch film. Obviously, if a team is killing us from the high post or killing us from the corner, we're going to have a game plan for that. But I don't think we go in there with that. They can't get shots from the left elbow. We can't allow that. I don't think we really go in with that mentality a whole lot.
Yeah.
Here we go. Got it. Y'all can see that? Okay.
Yep.
All right. So again, this is against Dominguez Hills here. This is a pretty basic zone setup. We're in the white. You guys can see. But the 1-3-1, right? 2 wings, point, and the post, right? You're going to see a lot of zone offense this way. And, traditionally, right, in a basic 2-3 zone, you're going to have the 2-guard front. And it's going to be, a lot easier to get the ball to the high post, which is, I spoke earlier, is what we want to avoid. So in this situation, again, we stack our guards. It almost looks like a 1-3-1, but that guy in the middle of the floor is actually the other guard. And what it does a couple things. One, it allows Phoenix up there to, pressure the ball a little bit more. And now we're matched up, right? So they can't just throw the ball into the high post with our guy standing right there. And then now as that high post man steps out, our defender goes with him. And then now we're in a little bit more of a traditional 2-3 look. And so they're moving the ball. Again, they've swung it, they've moved. And defensively, we really haven't had to do much of anything, right? And there's only 14 seconds left on the shot clock. So now we're guarding the ball. This situation right here, Will is guarding the ball. He does a good job. He picks it up. And with this guy filling up, lifting up from the corner, we'd be asking a lot, if we played a traditional zone, having Will stop the ball and then close out to this guy circling up to the top. So our wing just goes with him here. This is something that we do a lot. And I talked about having versatility. The wing and the guard, both those guys are 6'5". So if they switch spots defensively, it doesn't really matter for us. So now the clock, it's a short clock situation. He's up top. He knows he's the guard. So we switch. And then now this is, he's got to make a one-on-one play against the shot clock. And that's just really good individual defense by Tavian, who is a ridiculous athlete and maybe our best on-ball defender, and he can barely bend his knees. It's one of the wonders of the world here. Here we go again. When we stack our guards, this is another benefit. Will, who's an excellent defender, can really get up and be aggressive, pressuring the ball, because if he gets beat, he knows that our other guard up top is right there at the free throw line who can just plug and help. So it allows him to be a lot more aggressive on the ball at the top of the zone at the beginning of the offense. So again, they got their high post guy kind of creeping up here. Right here, right? A lot of flare screens get set against the top guard in the zone. And traditionally, most guys are going to probably try to get over that, fight over the top to get to that guy, and then maybe that middle guy who needs to be paying a little bit more attention on the weak side, would take the slip man, would take the screener. In this situation, we're playing Cal State East Bay, and that guy at the high post is an all-region guy that we need to worry about. So what we do here is instead of fighting over the top, he's just going to get hit by the screen and stay, right? So we're not going to allow their stud to catch the ball at 15 feet with space. We're not going to allow that to happen. So again, we get to a late shot clock situation, and now they have to make a tough shot against the clock. Got to do a better job rebounding right there. This situation right here, again, I think it's the same play. In this case, we're not quite as equipped to guard it, right? We got little BJ, who's about 5'8", maybe $180, right? He's given up maybe 30 pounds and almost 6 inches against this guy at the high post. So first of all, we're talking. He stays and he's there, but Will at the top of the zone does a really good job right here, understanding the situation and discouraging that pass to the high post, right? If they throw it there, he's stealing that, and he knows that he's giving BJ some help. And when they kick the ball back out here, he can always recover out to the top of the key. So good recognition here. Now they throw the ball to the short corner on the far side. Again, Justin's got his arm bar. Legs are a little wide right there. Could have better balance, but at least doesn't allow a catch on the block. So he's got the ball here. The far wing, he's cutting through right here. Now, what we typically teach, like most people, is to chug the cutter. In this situation, it's not quite as important because it doesn't look like he's cutting the score, right? He's just vacating. So as he vacates, this is a read right here. After that guy cuts through, Riley makes a read, and he decides to go double this. And this isn't necessarily a rule, but this is something that we go over and we teach. It does a couple things. One, we're being aggressive, right? I talked about how we want to instill an aggressive mentality. So we're putting pressure on the offense. And the second thing we're doing is it helps us stay in our zone, right? Because now our wing is back where he needs to be. And as he dribbles out, our middle guy can get back to the middle of the floor and we can stay in our zone. And you can see our top guard rotating over, and then we force another tough one. Hey, here we're in a 1-2-2 press. We drop back. This is from a year ago. So you see us kind of in our 2-guard front. Hey, right here, we got Will on the ball, and then Jordan on the far side. He realizes that he doesn't have anybody. And in any defense, you should be guarding somebody or some spot at all times. So what we tell these guys typically is if you don't see anybody at the top of the zone, just drop until you do. In this case, Jordan doesn't drop as much as he needs to, but he does keep his head on a swivel and he's active and engaged, and he does see this guy running through right here. So he just goes with him. So that's really good recognition right there. And then now we're still in our zone, 14 seconds on the clock, and they really haven't accomplished anything, and all the while this is happening, you got Justin on the post right here. He's doing a really good job fronting. That's a big time post guy that they have. And one of the keys was not letting him catch it deep. So he's doing a good job using his quickness, getting around. He's starting to get rid up pretty high on the lane line. So he's got to think about jumping to the backside sooner than later. But first and foremost, he doesn't let the ball in. And then now, again, we're pressuring on the wing in the corner. On that baseline drive, Justin does a really good job shedding the defense, getting to the low side, and helping on that drive.
Coach, from the high post, if the high post rolls, is it still the same matchup? How do you guard that? And then if the other team has a strong post or a really good score on the block, do you ever big to big double?
We double, yeah, we'll double from anywhere. Strong side corner, top guard, opposite guard, weak side. I mean, we have it all in the bag. We practice it all. Obviously we're not going to do every single double team every game, but we work on it from every spot. That's when I talked about making adjustments in game, and one of the biggest benefits of playing zone. And that's something that we're allowed to do. We're able to do. In terms of the roll man, what we'll typically do, if we're switching that ball screen after the roll, is he'll roll, that guard will chug him, and then hopefully if our middle guy is in position, he's chugging him and passing him right to the middle guy on the block. This is last year, tournament game against UC San Diego. Really good team, tough, physical. Ant, Mike, good luck playing them next year. Really good three-point shooting team. So in this situation, again, we have to get out and pressure. This guy flashing to the top, you won't have to worry about him. He's graduating, but he was the region player of the year. Really good on the block, can step out and shoot as well. So as he's coming up, we think it's a ball screen. He ends up popping up. So right, our middle guy can't stay with him. If he stays right there, we're out of our zone. We're scrambling. We might as well play man-to-man. And he can't help on this lane line drive. So what happens here is our guard comes over, right? We're not always going to do this, but this guy's a big-time shooter, so we have to. So as we come over, we try to accomplish two things here, right? First, you got to guard the ball. Second thing, we try to make this pass, this this swing to the opposite wing, we try to make that difficult. Obviously, you don't want to do it so much that you're giving up a straight line drive, but we try to get in jump that a little bit and make that a little bit more difficult of a pass. We didn't do it in this situation, but that tells our opposite wing he's got to move up, and that tells our middle guy he's got to get all the way out to the opposite corner. right? And with our middle guy out in that opposite corner and the penetration from the wing, now our wing on the near side, he essentially becomes the middle of our zone. So he's going to come all the way over to the strong side block. Our guard is going to drop, and then you got to load to the ball right there. Okay, this situation right here, very similar, right? Our wing is up and the middle of our zone is out there on the corner. So what happens here, and a lot of teams will do this against us, right? They get our middle guy out and now they want to dive someone or cut someone from the top, right? Because it looks open. So our wing on the near side here, he needs to come all the way over, so he's late getting there right now. He needs to do a better job. He should be there right now. He should be on a string with the middle of our zone. He gets there eventually, but they do get a post touch. They do get a post touch. And again, this is where post defense is vital, right? That's 6'8", 230 going against 6'4", maybe 190. So he's got to battle and do his part. And then once the ball goes in there, when our middle guy is out in the corner, he's coming back to double. This is almost automatic right here. So he comes back and doubles. It keeps us in our zone. It keeps us aggressive. And we don't just allow the offense to be comfortable. All right, so we scramble, we rotate, and we end up forcing a tough shot. One thing that happens a lot, a lot of teams will want to try to run their man stuff against us, which is fine. So in this situation, they got the horn set, hand dribble, handoff, and again, just the key with the man stuff is just making sure that we're not chasing guys around, that we're staying in our zone here. A lot of communication, a lot of pointing. On that far side, again, this Chico State, their post guy is really good. That's a first-team all-conference guy. And Will's got to do a good job doing his work early, right? Because if he catches it on the block, that's probably a bucket. So you see him working. He's moving his feet. He pushes him out, and now he catches it, damn near the three-point line. So now he gives himself a chance. You see him with his arm bar. He's being physical. And then he forces him to give the ball up. And then at this situation, late shot clock again. Late shot clock. Now they got to make a one-on-one play, and that's another tough shot. This is the same game here. You can see right here, again, we're small right now, right? Tavian in the middle of the zone, he's maybe 6'5", and he's not 200 pounds. So again, I talked about lineup flexibility. This is a situation right here where we're going really small. So again, that's Justin Briggs, opposite lane line trying to seal, 6'10", 230, athletic, has no business at our level, quite honestly. Don't know why we have to play against him, but it is what it is. So Tavian, again, using his feet, moving, getting around, and then now, again, catching it almost at the three-point line. Right, so now we've got a much better chance to be successful against the size in this situation. Right, so Tavian's got him, and again, we saw it earlier. This is a read. May sees that he has nobody with his guy floating to the top, so he goes and gets him. Right, let me help Tavian out since I know that he's got a bigger guy and he's got to stop. We trap him and we force a turnover right here. Hey, ball screens. We see a lot of ball screens, as everybody does nowadays. So in this situation, a couple things happen. First, it's to the lane line, right? So again, it's going to be tough to switch this. We do it sometimes with that wing, but in this situation, we're getting through. So first, he got to know the screen's coming. Tavian, you see his hands, over his mouth, yelling it out. So he does a great job communicating that from the strong side wing. So he's got to fight through and get through on the ball screen, and we got our middle guy ready to gap and help. In this situation, now this is where talk and communication is really important. Phoenix, who got lit up by the screen, he needs to do a better job getting through and being physical, but he gets lit up by the screen. Now he's got to make a decision. He's got to either let our middle guy take the ball handler and then pop back out and take the flare man, or he stays, which he does, right? If Finn stays, our middle guy, if he stays on the ball handler and Phoenix, who got screen, stays out, now we don't have to rotate, right? They essentially switched it. But he stays a little bit too long, so now we've got to rotate over. And in this situation, Phoenix, who got screen, I'm killing him right now, but he's kind of in no man's land. He needs to do one of two things. He needs to either drop to the wing or loop underneath and take that other guard. And if he takes that other guard, which is, who ended up getting the pass, No harm, no foul. We're in a good spot. But instead, we get a tough matchup. But Finn does a good job moving his feet and contesting the shot. Hey, ball screen here to the middle of the floor, right? This one's a little different. This one, a lot of times we will switch guard to guard. So that's what we do here. We switch it. Our wing comes all the way up. And again, interchangeable parts defensively. We rotate. It's not that big of a deal. Okay, to the lane line. Again, got to get through that one more times than not. Tavian does a good job getting skinny and getting through. And we're able to put pressure and force a turnover here. Hey, this is against UC San Diego this year. This guy with the ball is a big-time player, Tyrell Roberts. Again, good luck guarding him next year, Mike and Ant. But again, I spoke earlier about San Diego being a really good three-point shooting team, right? So in this situation, it's the same ball screen, but if our guard comes all the way over, now he's going to immediately swing it, and then now you got two shooters on the weak side and we're scrambling. So we didn't want to be in a scramble situation from jump against this team. So I talk about the flexibility and the ability to make adjustments in game. What we do here is we just switch with our five-man. So Justin comes off. Justin is 6'7", he's long, he's athletic, and he can guard 1 through 5, at a really high level. So we just go ahead and switch it. And if he ends up at the top of the zone, that's fine. He's capable up there. So again, we're not scrambling quite as much. BJ was a little taller. He gets that steal. But we still force a tough shot there, and then we rebound and we can be out. So I think that's the last clip there. But as you can see, a lot of flexibility in the way you can guard things, and it really comes down to, honestly, it comes down to personnel, right? More times than not, we got 5 guys out there that are 6'5", long and athletic, and no matter what defensive situation they're in, they're going to be able to hold their own.
Yeah. Coach Danielle, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
What's up, Matt?
What's up, Danielle? Appreciate you coming out.
Of course. I wouldn't miss it. Matt is awesome, by the way. I got to give a shout out, one of the hardest working people in our department. And I know Greg is definitely lucky to have him.
Tell him that.
What's that?
Tell him that.
Oh, he knows. He tells me frequently. But yeah, Matt's awesome. And, I find myself going to him for help too on a lot of things. So definitely appreciate you and great presentation. I kind of know this, but just from, I get the benefit of being able to sit in on practices sometimes and things like that, but kind of going over, when you have that ball screen up at the top and like you'd mentioned, you had, BJ was guarding, end up switching onto the high post when they roll. Sometimes you obviously want your, weak side people to release them as they roll down. If they don't, when you have someone like BJ who's small, do you have him front? Do you still play the one arm bar behind? How do you guys teach that?
Well, yeah, everyone's doing the arm bar. But if BJ is down there, again, he's the exception to our personnel rule on the roster currently. And the reality is he's not going to have much of a chance down there. So, this past year, we tried to avoid that situation. When it happened, we're doubling. We're not allowing them to go one-on-one against our 5'8" guy.
Hey, Coach, do you obviously with the zone and everything that's going on, all the different things that teams do to attack it, do you have certain terminology that you guys use? Because I know for us, we tried implementing a zone, and there's certain things, dribble up, dribble down, melt back, stuff like that. Is there anything that you guys use, or is it just simple 8 left, right, switch, and communicate that way? Or there's certain specific terminology that you guys use?
Yeah, we have some. I think we're more concerned. We just want our guys to talk, and we want them to use their voice. So if they're using words and they're communicating, in a way that's comfortable for them, I think that leads them to talk more, right? Because they're not saying what someone else wants them to say. They're saying their own words, and as long as that line of communication is had and is being made, it's been effective. In terms of specific terminology, there's some. I don't honestly think that it makes us any more or less effective that we use certain terms.
Yeah. What do you guys do to make these guys talk? Like, obviously kids nowadays, they don't talk. So how do you guys get them to do that?
I talked about practice stuff. We do a lot of scramble drills in practice. One of my favorites, we call it 4-on-6. So what that is basically you got 4 guys in a 4-man zone, right? 2 guards, 2 wings. And then you got 6 offensive players, right? You got a 2-guard front, you got 2 wings, and then you got 2 guys in each corner, right? 1 guy in each corner. So the guys in the corner are stationary. They're not allowed to rebound. They're not allowed to move, but they're just catch and shoot, catch and drive, catch and pass, or whatever, what have you. So now, you got 4 defensive players against 6 offensive players. If you're not talking, you have no chance to accomplish the drill. So we try to put them in situations where communication is vital, to just get through practice. And then obviously when the game comes and, you're not outnumbered, it gets a little easier.
Yeah. Coach, Coach Dallett, you had a question? You're on mute. Coach, you're on mute.
Yeah, there we go.
There it is.
How you doing, man? Coach, thanks for sharing. Dalit Bhatia from Marist College men's basketball in New York. With so much time spent on your zone in practice, for the months of this is a selfish question because I work for somebody who we play 100% man-to-man. In the middle of January going into February, how do you use your time effectively at the end of the year to prepare for another team for your offense, since you're playing so much zone in practice to focus on your own defense?
I'm not sure I understand the question. So are you speaking to the point I made about shorter scouts and how I have more time?
So I'm assuming that you guys play that zone predominantly throughout the year.
100%.
Yep. Okay. So this is exactly what I want to ask. So we play 100% man. So during the month of February, as you guys get later into the year, how do you guys structure practice to still get offensive reps against a man-to-man team by still trying to allocate enough time to focus on your own zone defense, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no. If we're not defending at a high level by February, then we're probably in trouble.
I guess let me rephrase my question. How much time do you guys spend playing man-to-man defense in practice so your offense can get those quality reps against the opposition's defense?
I got you. No, I mean, yeah, if a team plays man-to-man, then, that when we work on our offensive stuff, our guys just play man. We'll tell them to hedge the ball screen. We'll tell them to ice. We'll tell them to switch. We play man-to-man if we want to work on our man offense, I guess. I'm not sure if that answered your question or not.
Yeah, I guess from a time standpoint, right? Like in February, I don't know how long your practices are. Do you still put more time into your own zone defense, or do you ponder, hey, are we doing our kids a disservice by not playing enough man defense in practice to give them the proper offensive execution?
I got you. Well, it just depends. You know what I mean? If we're scoring 80 a game, then we're probably locked in on our defense, and because our offense is fine. You know what I mean? If we're really struggling to score, then defensively we're doing a decent job, then we probably need to focus a little bit more on that. So I can't give you a black and white answer. That's one of the things Coach K is really good at, is just understanding the identity of every team, right? Because it's different every year, and just knowing what we need to work on in a given situation at a given time.
Yep. No, thank you. Just trying to understand what different people do with efficiency of practices later in the year.
Got you.
Coach Jeff, you had a question?
Yeah. Hey, Matt.
What's up?
Wondering, so you talked about the double teaming. You know how you guys pretty much double whenever there's a mismatch or, you know, when there's a low block, you know, catching the low block.
Hmm.
That's scout specific, or what if, you know, the other team has shooters all around the perimeter? I mean, are you still going to double off a shooter?
We would like not to double, ideally, but you know, we do. You know, I think again, just getting the offense, our mentality, just getting the offense out of what they want to do. You know what I mean? Is pretty important. If they're reacting to us, you know, we think we have the advantage. You know, in terms of not doubling off certain shooters, yeah, it can be scout specific. There's guys. There was a dude at Humboldt that was knocked down from 30 feet this year. You know, we're not leaving that guy.
Yeah.
But by and large, you know, we teach scrambling. You know what I mean? If you're leaving, then that next guy better be there on the catch. You know, and again, that's an effort thing, and you know, everyone is capable of getting there.
And that's same as helping strong side shoot on strong side drives.
Yeah, I don't know if we coach or teach that. You know, we kind of we talk about giving our guys some freedom and to kind of use their instincts, to use their IQ and make plays. If there's a non-shooter on the strong side and our guy went and doubled, you know, we wouldn't be opposed to that. You know what I mean? So we hope they paid attention during the scout and they know who's who.
Yeah. Okay.
Mike,
Matt.
go ahead. Or Steve.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I got a lot of questions, Matt. So
Take
I
it
mean,
away.
it's so you have to recruit IQ. Is that accurate? And intelligence.
It definitely helps. It definitely helps. You know, another thing that's helpful, and this you know, I don't know, this is tough for, you know, guys like you and Santos, is we got a lot of 4 or 5 year guys. We got a lot of guys that redshirt. You know what I mean? So that zone for a lot of incoming freshmen can be tough that first year to pick up. You know, it's funny. You know, some guys you get a feel for who has IQ and feel, and some guys pick it up like within a week, and other guys, you know, they're going into their 3rd year in the program and they're still trying to figure some things out. But having guys there for you know 4 and 5 years, you know, I think most of them end up getting it eventually. And the harder you play, the quicker you figure it out. Is usually the way it works.
Because it looks like there's because I played a matchup zone. Campbell comes from it was the Princeton matchup zone. It looks like what you guys are doing. There's like rules, but there's no rules. It seems like there's no rules that you guys just. I mean, like what you always refer back to is like the guys just figure it out, like communicate it out, figure it out. It just sounds like that's what you're saying. And Dilip, I had the same question as you. Because that's a challenge. So like you're going against your matchup zone in practice every day, offensively, so that you could really have to compartmentalize, right? Like you just focus on your defense when you're going against yourselves. Like if you're playing matchup zone against yourselves in practice, you're just focused on your defense. Is that accurate?
I wouldn't say that. You know, we're working on zone offense also. You know, and a lot of our matchup zone has man-to-man principles. You know what I mean? So we think that, you know, if you can effectively score and manufacture good shots against the zone, I mean, a lot of that stuff I think transfers over to any defense you're going to face.
Right. So like, because the way that you talk about, I would freak out about that. Like planning a practice, like, oh my God, like how are we going to plan it? Like we're working so much, just like we do, like we ice ball screens. I mean, so like, we're like, oh, well, how do we practice against hedge? And our guys can't hedge. They don't know how to hedge. And some coaches freak out about that. More specifically, what's the rules in transition D? Is it just run to your spot or?
I mean, there's certain guys, like, you know, I spoke a lot about BJ. There's certain guys where ideally we don't want him on the wing or on the back line of the defense, right? He's a little guy. But other than that, again, it comes down to communication. And that's why having an interchangeable parts, is awesome. Because if someone, you know, if our middle guy ends up on the wing and we got a 6'5" athletic guy in the middle, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. You know, and I talk about feel and IQ a lot. We do have a foundation that we work on, and there's like there is a base to all of this. Being able to go through all that in this allotted time was not going to happen. But general things like, when our middle guy goes out to the corner, that weak side wing is coming over, strong side block, guard drop. I mean, again, that's automatic, and that's a man-to-man defensive principle as well, right? That's help the helper. So again, very, very, very similar concepts in certain situations.
And then I guess the last question is, so every guy has to know the scout of their opponent, whereas like in man-to-man, I just have to know the scout. If I'm guarding you, I just have to know you.
Right.
Is it like do you guys shorten up your scouts because of that, or is it still the same as far as personnel base? Like,
we spend a lot of time on personnel, as we do, because as you said, you might have to guard anybody on any given possession. But again, we think, or I've noticed that, again, spending less time going over specials, going over, again, you have more time, and they have more of a attention span, to lock in on the personnel stuff.
Hey, Matt, I had a question. You might have covered it, and I apologize if you mentioned this. But, all right, so up 3, their ball, sideline out of bounds. You're up 3. What are y'all doing?
How much time's left?
Let's say 5 seconds left.
5 seconds left. In that situation, I might be able to yank Coach K's arm and get him to go man in that situation.
Okay, man, and you're switching everything?
Switching everything, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I might be able to get him to do that.
So how about if there's about 29 seconds?
Oh, we're playing our defense.
Playing yours, playing straight up?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Matt, I know you, obviously this stuff doesn't get put in just in one day. Like if you were to leave and go to a different program and coach wherever you're at, coach says, hey, I want you to instill, the defense you guys did at Cal Poly. Do you have it documented? Is there written down, whatever, on how to build it up? Like, this is what we do. We're going to work on this. Now we got this right. Now we're going to build up, add this part of it. Because I think that's always, you want to break down certain areas before you put it all together. Like, would you be able to put that all together on your own with a completely brand new staff, new team, and build it up?
Absolutely. And again, you obviously were 100% committed to it, right? We run it all the time. It's our only defense. We spend a lot of time on it. I feel that you don't need to go all the way with it. You know what I mean? Especially, like, for example, I'm watching a team that, again, I talked about the 1-3-1 zone defense, right? A lot of teams, 1-3-1, high post flash, short corner dive, right? That's a basic offense that almost every team runs. And there's certain scouting zone principles that we can do, maybe for that game. You know what I mean? And you can just run it in that situation, against a given opponent, and it's going to be effective. If you notice that a team doesn't really do that much or doesn't have a ton of movement against zone. So again, it depends on how much you want to implement. I think there's certain key things that you can use, even if you're not going to be primarily a zone team, that you can use for a scout against a given opponent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that answered your question or not.
No, it does. It does. Does anybody else have questions? I don't want Mike or Steve or me to dominate this, but everything's been good. Well, sure. I have another one for you. How do you know kids can play in your zone, like recruiting wise? Like for us, we dive into it, but everyone plays man. Obviously, they don't know how to jump to the ball. They don't know all that type of stuff. But like, how do you evaluate? Like, I think that's one thing you do really, really well. You see a ton of players out there. Mm-hmm. Shoot, you're telling me about players sometimes, but how do you really evaluate, their knowledge to be able to let it carry over?
That's a good question. A good thought to have in your head. And I got this from Damian, our associate head coach. He says this a lot. you bring up a kid. Oh, do you like this kid? He's like, when he doesn't have the ball, I don't notice him. You know what I mean? So again, that's a question that we ask ourselves a lot when we're recruiting kids. It's like, do you notice him when he doesn't have the ball? And if you do, then he's probably got a little bit of an IQ, right? Because he's getting in passing lanes, he's rebounding, he's challenging shots, he knows when to cut. A lot of that stuff. Your IQ is it's showcased a lot more when you don't have the ball and you're trying to impact the game.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously we keep talking about the zone. I know you know your stuff. X's and O's, man, offense, man, defense. How are you helping yourself obviously grow more than the matchup zone? Like, what are you doing to better yourself so that way wherever you go, whether the head coach wants you to put in the matchup zone, or now you have to adapt to hard hedging or drop or icing ball screens. Like, what are you doing, to kind of stay on top of things?
Well, I don't really have a choice, man. We got great coaches in our league. We have great teams, great man-to-man teams in our league. So we see great. I mean, Jordan's on this call right here, Cal State East Bay. It'd be hard pressed to find another team that plays as solid man-to-man defense as them. You know what I mean? So it's right in front of my face all the time. So through scouts, through film, you know what I mean? If you're watching basketball all the time, you know what I mean? You're gonna be fairly versatile and well versed in other defenses as well. I would think. I feel like I am, at least.
Yeah. So you said if you go somewhere, do you fight the head coach to try and put in, a matchup zone, or you, coach, I'm a man-to-man type of guy?
I'm not gonna fight him. If there's a suggestion, again, I feel comfortable teaching it. I feel like I could implement it. But again, if you want to do it at the level that we're doing, there has to be a lot of time that's spent on it. And he needs to understand that.
Just to buy in and be patient and all that.
Absolutely. And it's gonna look bad at first, just like anything else. So you got to get him to be 100% on board with it. But like I said, even if you don't want to implement it 100% of the time, there's going to be a lot of scouts, a lot of opponents where, you can give them a zone look and it can be really effective for you.
Yeah. Coach Coburn, go ahead and ask your question. I think that's a good one.
Yeah, man. I was just curious. Do you guys zone based on out of bounds? And if you do you put someone on the ball? Like if a team goes 4 flat against you guys, you kind of match up out of that, or how do you handle an alignment like that?
Yeah, so if they go 4 flat, we're gonna match up with them. More times than not, the middle guy in our zone is gonna be on the ball.
Okay.
Again, scouting stuff that can change, but typically he's gonna be on the ball. And then again, if they're 4 flat, someone's gonna pop to the top and be the safety at some point. You know what I mean? So our guard's gonna go up and get that guy, and then we kind of rotate from there.
You always put somebody on the ball, no matter the alignment?
More times than not. Again, we're shading, protecting the basket like most people teach. But more times than not, we're gonna have someone on it.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks, dude.
Yep.
Do you guys ever jump somebody with the ball? Like they're coming across half court, you go get him, or is there someone that's a liability shooting wise? Do you just not guard and basically close out to the gap and shrink the floor and basically hit off him, let him shoot? Like, do you guys do that?
Yes. On the catch, again, well, let me answer your first question. We like to trap. We like to be aggressive defensively. You know what I mean? So if we see a situation where we can do it, we're not going to be compromised if they pass out. Then we will absolutely take advantage of that. In terms of non-shooters, obviously you hope those guys are short closeout and keeping them in front. But once they're not shooting the ball, we still like to pressure. Because again, even if you're not guarding that guy and he can't shoot, if you allow him to see the floor, you know what I mean, and he's going to be able to make, possibly a scoring pass or a penetrating pass into the zone. And then, that can be problematic as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty good. other questions out there? I think this is all good stuff. Go ahead.
I got one more. My bad. I forgot to ask this one. So like at the end of games, I know Steve had asked about like teams when they need threes. Towards the end of the game, say there's like a minute and a half to go and you're up by 6 and you know teams are going to try and start jacking up threes. Do you think playing zone is more beneficial for you guys because you can extend out and guard the 3-point line and not have to move around as much? Or do you think it's better to go man, you know, like with a minute and a half left and you know teams are just going to jack up threes?
Yeah, I mean, going zone hasn't hurt us a ton. You know what I mean? Again, you have the help, and the guys off the ball are usually in set spots defensively. So now if they're ball screening or doubling away, I mean, the switches, in my opinion, get a lot easier because you're not chasing guys quite as much.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that we will do at the end of games is, you know, if they go 5 out, you know, and they just swing the ball and try to get a 3 out, you know, that I talked about the middle guy going out to the corner and then running back or getting pushed back to the middle of the floor. We'll just have him stay out there. So we'll essentially be in a spread 1-2-2 defense, you know what I mean, protecting the 3-point line.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, man.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I'll ask one. Adam Hood, UTSA. How you doing, Matt?
What's up, Hood?
Hey, I had a quick question. What gives you guys the most problems? Like in your zone, again, I came in a little bit late. Dylan, I got a little baby here crying right now. But what gives you guys the most problems in your zone?
What gives us problems is, well, again, post guys are tough. Post guys are tough, right? Who can pass? Post guys who can pass are tough, you know, because, again, we're not going to be the biggest down there. As you saw in our zone, our middle guy in the zone, he got to be able to move. So we're going to be giving up some size down there. You know, at our level, you don't come across too many highly skilled big guys. They get swooped up before they get here. But that gives us problems. And I'll be just like any zone, you know, if you got 5 guys out there who can shoot the ball, you know what I mean? It's going to be tough, but that's probably going to be tough against any defense.
Thanks.
Yep.
Free reign. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll go ahead, Brian.
How you doing? First of all, guys, thank you for having this. It's such a great platform for all of us to share. But I just want to really comment with Coach Jeff Rada at Fullerton. With this information that is out, we could get better with drills and things of that sort. And his topic obviously was culture. The thing that he has done and been very consistent is put his players in places where to be successful. Simplicity, the knowledge, and obviously determination that he creates for his players has been unbelievable. I beg you to continue to support him and what he's done. And this is coming from an opposing Big West school. But thank you once again for having this, and appreciate you guys for continuing to empower us. And let's continue to get the word out.
Thanks, Brian. Really appreciate you, man, and your support for sure. You guys are doing good things too, you know, and yeah, it's not easy for sure. The culture part, you know, I think that's kind of what my main topic was. And it's so important, especially when you're trying to rebuild a program, because you have to manage your culture, because if you don't, it'll end up managing you at some point. And by then it's too late. It's too late, you know. I mean, like I said, there's reasons why jobs are open, right? And teams struggle. It's bad coaching, bad players, whatever reason. And so, you know, every job that I've took to rebuild these programs, you know, the kids want to win. They just don't know how. You know, they don't. And you have to establish a new culture of accountability, responsibility, and a winning culture, a winning environment. You have to hold them accountable. I mean, perfect example. I don't mean to take up a lot of time, but at Fullerton, my first year, our first road trip, I had 2 kids late for the bus, and we left them at the hotel. We went to eat breakfast. We left them. And obviously, I didn't know this at the time, but some of the players saw them running out of the lobby, chasing the bus, but we weren't stopping for them, and then, the message was, their excuse was, well, we didn't think you guys would actually leave us, because last year they didn't leave us, even though we were late. So, well, this isn't last year, and they had to understand that. Expectations are changed now. Standards are different now. And funny story, you guys were at that tournament in Montana with us, I think, our first year. But we had shoot around at 1:30. We're leaving at 1:30 later on that day. I got on the bus at like 1:25, and my assistant said everybody was on the bus at 1:15. Because already no one wanted to get left. Because now they knew we were going to leave them. And so you change the culture and the expectations and the standards now. And so the discipline. I think that's one of the most important things if you want to change the results. So.
Jeff, I'll add to that, buddy. And I actually let the staff member. I was like, hey, we're leaving at this time, and a staff member didn't show up, and I left. And the staff member called me, you really left me? I'm like, yeah, I said this time. and then the staff member told my coach, I said, look, coach, I said this time, you ain't there. And my head coach backed me up. And that was the most important thing. When he's on board with you or your head coach and you on board with your staff, man, that says a lot. But I agree with you, man. And all my players are they were like asking, you really going to leave? I'm like, yeah, I'm leaving. So
no, you got to, right? You got to be credible. The players got to see that you mean business. I left an SID because they were late for the bus, and it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, that's just the life lessons you got to teach, especially when you're trying to change a culture and rebuild a program. They got to know you're serious, and you mean business. And it's not to hurt them or anything or, be unfair to them. You got to be firm, but firm and fair. I think that's important. I'm firm, but I'm fair as well. And it has to be with everyone. I mean, I've kicked all conference players out of practice for their lack of effort. And when you can do that, so for me, especially in year one, when you're rebuilding a program, you have to sacrifice. I truly believe this. You have to sacrifice wins to build your culture. You do. And if that means you got to sit out one of your best players for whatever reason, and it might mean that you're going to lose the game, that has to happen in order for you to establish your culture. Because then the players understand you mean business. And it's not all about the moment and just winning that game. I'm not going to allow a player to get away with something just because we need her to play to win the game when it's not something that we want in our culture. So
that's important. Having an identity and then it building to your culture. And I'm sure, Matt, you guys have the same things. You know your identity and what you're recruiting for, and it turns out to be your culture, man. That's awesome. Anthony?
Appreciate everybody on here today. I think we had a lot of good stuff on here, from culture to matchup zone. Once again, appreciate everyone for being here. Appreciate you, Mike, Garrett, Steve, Coach Harada, Coach Okada. Shout out to Coach Wood from Hillcrest Prep on the newborn, and then Coach Hood from UTSA hopping on with the baby crying. Appreciate everyone for logging in, and hope to see you guys all back next week.
Hey, you guys, thank you so much. I just want to wrap up real quick. Thank you, Anthony, again, Matt and Jeff, y'all's time. Mike, I also appreciate you and your hard work. Also, the guy behind the curtain, and still haven't seen his face, hasn't made an appearance, but Garrett, shout out to you, brother, man. If anybody out there looking for a hard worker, man, I promise you, Garrett's the guy. And I'm not blowing smoke up him, but I can promise you he's a hard worker. So thank you, Garrett. Just want to let you guys know, quick announcement, housekeeping next week. We've got 2 great speakers, Coach Jace Coburn. He's actually on here right now, and he's speaking a little bit, but he'll be here. He's associate head coach at Portland State, talking about high-level defensive coverages. And then Coach Jerome Tang the associate head coach at Baylor. We're talking about some culture of joy. Two great speakers, same time, same day, Wednesday, 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern time. Again, y'all, thank you guys so much. Feel free to push it out once we put it out there. And I think Garrett might have already done it or so, but once he's out there in social media, feel free to push it out there and come ready to learn and grow, and questions as well too. All right. So if you guys don't have any other questions for these two speakers, thank you guys so much. Appreciate you guys. Be safe. And